Hello, my name's Michael Conneely, and this video tells you about 6 retrograde planets in June 2020, plus the nodes being retrograde, of course. And it's part 3 of our June 2020 Star Wheel Astrology and Healing newsletter. So essentially the video is in 3 parts. In part 1, I give you the facts and dates of the retrograde planets and what a lot there is. In part 2, I say, well, what sort of things in your life does it mean when a particular planet is retrograde, covering all the planets. And then in part 3, I go through the the analysis methods of how to deeper understand how a retrograde planet will affect you in your life now. Well worth doing. So let's start off with part 1, which is a statement of the dates and signs of the many retrograde planets of this time in June 2020. So basically, June 2020 has 6 planets retrograde plus the nodes. So at the start of June, Jupiter, Venus, Saturn and Pluto, Jupiter, Venus, Saturn and Pluto were all retrograde. Additionally, Mercury turns retrograde on the 18th of June, and Neptune turns retrograde on the 22nd of June. Although Neptune has been in its present degree, 26 Vedic Aquarius, since the 28th of April, and this stationary position of Neptune, I believe, has brought immense increase in the Neptune energies coming through to us. And I've actually done a separate and I think wonderful a blog post about that as another add-on part of my June newsletter. So please do watch that. But there's more retrogrades to come after June. Chiron turns retrograde from the 11th of July to the 15th of December. Uranus turns retrograde from the 15th of August to the 11th of January. Mars turns retrograde from the 10th of September to the 14th of November. My goodness. Well, and just a note, Venus, which started June retrograde, is in something of a mess at the beginning of June because Venus is conjunct the Sun on the 3rd of June at 19 degrees Vedic Taurus. So Venus is Kazimi on that date, but Venus is damaged by the Sun or combust from the 30th of May when Venus was at 22 degrees Taurus retrograde, until the 8th of June when Venus is at 24 degrees Taurus. So the beginning of June, certainly the first week and a little bit longer, please be aware that Venus's energies of love are compromised. Not only is Venus retrograde when we might find it difficult to express love so easily, when issues in love could surface in a problematic way, Venus is also combust, peaking the 3rd of June. And in fact, if you do feel there's healing need in issues of love, my wife Maggie Pashley does many online healings, one of which is heart wall clearing. It is so necessary to clear a heart wall, a barrier that you might be walking around with for years, a barrier to love. And that could really surface in your awareness that you have one, if you do, at this time. And another very big thing is soul realignment. It's very impossible for us to form a satisfactory relationship and to utterly cherish and grow and develop love if we are not who we need to be, aligned to our soul purpose. So do also look up soul realignment. Okay, when do these various retrograde transits end? Well, Mercury turns direct on the 12th of July. All these dates are in the associated blog post. Jupiter turns direct on the 13th of September. Saturn turns direct on the 29th of November. And Pluto turns direct on the 5th of October. And of course, at that turn direct date, remember the planet will have come to a halt in its retrograde before turning direct. There'll be stationary motion, and please be aware that a planet carves its deepest effect at the time of stationary motion. The slower a planet's movement, the vaster and deeper he carves his effect. So obviously watch out for the Pluto effect around the 5th of October. Oh yes, and the other point is, on my Star Wheel Astrology website, I have a page for each month showing the charts and also showing the ephemeris, the planetary positions in both Vedic astrology and Western astrology. So go to the June 2020 page on my Star Wheel Astrology website, and you can see the astrology of each month in charts and ephemeris. So, what I want to do now is go to part 2 of this video, which is, well, what's the nature of the energy affecting us when a planet turns retrograde? So when Mercury is retrograde in the heavens, we'll all experience problems in the areas of speech, expression, posts and communication, IT, siblings, and the house that Mercury is transiting, and the affairs of the houses that Mercury occupies and rules in your birth chart. But of course it will depend on the standing of Mercury in your chart, how strong and good Mercury is, how badly the well-known Mercury retrograde problems are. In my life they're terrible because I have Mercury retrograde in my chart and it's conjunct Ketu, the south node. It rules the 12th house and the 3rd house, which incidentally is occupied by Neptune, and it rules my 22nd Dracana and 64th Navamsha, the very dangerous points of a chart. So I have to take such endless care when Mercury is retrograde myself. Okay, Venus. Well, when Venus is transiting retrograde, barriers of love can be felt for the beautiful expression of love. Behaviours can arise that are problems for love in your life, can tear it apart. And indeed those behaviours can show you that your love needs to be healed. Venus is the karaka or indicator for wife in a man's chart. And so there's a need to pay very special attention to marriage, loving partnership and the wife for a man, and the may need healing or transformation work. Now when Mars is transiting retrograde, it can be that we could feel very blocked about taking needed action. And the frustration or block can lead to problems of irritability, arguing and even violence. Mars is the karaka for brothers, so brothers could be a problem at this time, or brothers could be affected at this time. So this is a good time to do work with the divine nature of Mars and with the divine warrior. And, I absolutely love doing vision journeys to meet the divine nature of planets and indeed the gods and goddesses who are faces of the divine. And, I meet these in vision work, and I speak from the heart, and I speak from a fully embodied position. Or another thing I do is put up a picture on the wall perhaps light a candle every day in front of the picture of, say, Brihaspati, the divine dimension of Jupiter, and again speak from the heart to the divine nature of any planet. And if you're having Mars retrograde problems, do this for Mars. If you're having Chiron retrograde problems, do it for Chiron, etc. So the next retrograde planet I'm talking about is Jupiter. And when Jupiter is retrograde, our connection to Guru energy is reduced. Inspiration and blessing is reduced. So you do need to take special remedial action to strengthen your connection to the divine Jupiter at the time of Jupiter retrograde. Jupiter has been retrograding in Capricorn, and Capricorn is the sign of Jupiter's debilitation. So if you look at his strength as measured by the wonderful Shodasha Varga scores that Vedic astrology offers, scoring the strength of a planet across up to 16 of the Varga charts, the divisional charts, each of which says something utterly wonderful about a particular area of our life. Jupiter is having scores like 1 at the moment. So even if, say Jupiter is Vargotama, he's incredibly weak at the moment, and that needs to be taken into account, and it needs to be healed. Okay, Saturn. Well, when Saturn is retrograde, it's big. We feel fear, at least bursts of fear. Bursts of depression, if not depression. We are grimly and unavoidably forced to tie up loose ends and complete undone jobs. Indeed, commit to completing undone jobs. We are compelled at a time of Saturn retrograde to be methodical, patient and diligent. We will feel grave problems if we're not, but if we obey these commands of Lord Shani, Lord of Karma, we'll then experience golden reaping in that area of our life. At the time of Saturn retrograde, there could be death experiences in your life and circle, equally experiences in your life and circle of loss and separation and disease. They're certainly greater during Saturn retrograde periods. And of course, Saturn retrograde is part of the supremely important Sade Sate period, the 7.5-year period when Saturn transits across your natal moon, putting it simply, through the sign before the moon, the sign of the moon and the sign after the moon. And indeed at the start of that transit, Saturn will go through the 22nd Reckoner and 64th Navamsha in your chart, the one I mentioned as a very dangerous area, the start of the 8th house. So that's, by the way, that would only apply if, like me, you have a 9th house moon. That's like an extra unfortunate burden. So what I'm trying to get over is, Sade Sati is huge. Do contact me for a reading, and I analyse it not just as transit through the signs, but also as transit through the nakshatras and the time periods defined by the Saturn's passage through the nakshatras, and also bringing in Western psychodynamic and Western evolutionary astrology. So if you're in Sade Sati, get a reading from me. Uranus. Well, when Uranus is transiting retrograde, we are compelled to acknowledge the need for revolution in an area of our life. If we don't acknowledge Uranus's call for revolution, for manning the barricades and raising the flags of revolution, then we will suffer. But if we do bring in revolution that our consciousness tells us is needed, we will avoid suffering and we will reap rewards. We need to bring in revolution. So check whether revolution is needed at the time when Uranus is retrograde coming up. And often with Uranus retrograde, the change is very abrupt and totally unusual, unthought of, and different to our usual way of thinking, acting and being. Now when Neptune is retrograde, it can be tough. You see, Neptune has wonderful gifts of vision work, shamanic journeying, visionary healing, sensitivity and intuition, sensitivity to earth energies and body energies. And they're often forgotten in the more sensationalist ranting of, the secrets, the downfalls, blah, blah, blah. But when Neptune becomes retrograde, what can happen is, one thing, that we can lose touch with the wonderful gifts of the Neptune activation we were having, say in the areas of vision or whatever, or we can, they can just dissolve and we don't act on them, or horrifically we can become aware that our dream and our vision was an illusion. Neptune is inescapably vastly important and necessary to understand. So you need to watch out for Neptune retrograde periods. And any escapism that we've been doing will be put flat into our face for us to deal with when Neptune turns retrograde. Pluto. Well, when Pluto turns retrograde, our wounds and fears may surface to be faced and healed. Control scripts will arise into our consciousness, into our mind, to be faced, to be dealt with. This is a time for the journey into the abyss, like Persephone, like Ishtar or Inanna. And I do a wonderful journey into the abyss, which you can enroll for. And basically that involves a vision journey where we stand embodied fully in ourselves on the surface of the earth and develop the sense of any burdens and guilts and secrets that are weighing us down and cutting us off from connection to the divine light through Kether, our crown chakra. And then the journey takes you into the abyss to meet Pluto in his form of keeper in the abyss. And you ask him to take these terrible burdens, and of course he may ask a price. And then you arise from the abyss, lightened, and then experience yourself back again standing on the earth, fully embodied, with the divine light pouring into your crown chakra. Pluto is Kether, the crown chakra. So Pluto retrograde periods are to be watched. Remember, a Pluto transit lasts up to 3 years, and of course, Pluto can be moving forward and backward over one of your planets, hopefully bringing great empowerment, but also demanding that the shadows, the guilts, the secrets, and the wrongs all be dealt with as well. The retrogrades usually alternating with the direct motions and the exact hits on your natal planet. Very important time, can be a wonderful time. I've got Pluto transiting square my sun and my moon at the moment. Definitely my rightful sense of my power is increasing, and that's very helpful. Okay, the final Chiron retrograde. Well, in Chiron retrograde period, and one's coming up, sense of your wounds can surface strongly. Pain will be felt. This is your time to acknowledge old wounds, allow them to surface, heal them. Easier said than done. Change that area of your life. Do not be in denial. Do not avoid the needed healing and transformation work. Chiron retrograde. This is a healing crisis. And we'll feel worse before we feel better. Remember that. Chiron is our existential wound, in the healing of which we can become the healer of others. So basically, at the end of the blog post, I show a video and blog link for my presentation on how to analyse a transit, whether direct or retrograde. If you want a reading with me, go to the buy page on my Star Wheel Astrology website, or you can enroll on one of my courses on my Master Vedic Astrology website, which also does, of course, crossover to Western psychodynamic and Western evolutionary astrology. You know, you can focus on the Western, focus on the Vedic, and most usually people want to cross-refer to the other as well. And my wife Maggie Pashley does so many wonderful healings online, so you see her website www.maggiepashley.com. And just to say that the stuff about how to interpret a retrograde planet, and I haven't gone into that because the video will get too long, is in the associated blog, and it is in retrograde interpretation page on my Star Wheel Astrology website. So, you know, have a look at that. So I hope this has been useful information about, you know, to try and crystallize your perception of the effects of the retrogrades hitting you, and useful perception about what's best to do about it. Thank you.